Mengistu Haile Mariam, the soldier, the chairman, the exile. In May 2025, Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam celebrated his 84th birthday in Harare, Zimbabwe. Among the few guests were aging former students, Ethiopian youth he once sent to Cuba for schooling, now visiting the man who shaped their fate. For decades, Mengistu's name evoked both admiration and fear. Some call him a patriot. Others remember him as a brutal dictator. This is his story. Born in 1937 in Walaita, southern Ethiopia, Mengistu grew up in poverty. He joined the military young, showing ambition and tactical skill. In 1964, he was sent to the United States for 6 months to receive military training at the Savannah Army Depot in Illinois, followed by further training at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. During this time, he also took night classes at the University of Maryland, which helped him become fluent in English. These experiences abroad exposed him to new ideas and shaped his worldview, including witnessing racial discrimination and the civil rights movement. He steadily rose through the ranks. Ethiopia in the early 1970s was a country on the brink. Famine, inequality, corruption, and political unrest plagued the ancient empire of Haile Selassie. In 1974, a military coup overthrew the emperor. Haile Selassie was placed under house arrest. Many believe that under Mengistu's orders, the former emperor was secretly killed and buried beneath Mengistu's office, a grim symbol of the violent end of Ethiopia's monarchy. Power passed to the Derg, a military junta, with Mengistu quickly rising to dominate. By 1977, he declared himself chairman of the Derg and head of state. Aligning Ethiopia with the Soviet Union, Cuba, and Libya, Mengistu embraced Marxist-Leninist ideology. Thousands of Ethiopian youths were sent to Cuba for education, while Cuban troops fought alongside Ethiopian forces. The Ogaden War, Ethiopia's fierce struggle for territory. In 1977, shortly after Mengistu consolidated power, Ethiopia faced one of its greatest external challenges, the Ogaden War. The Ogaden region, a vast arid territory in eastern Ethiopia, was claimed by Somalia as part of a greater Somalia vision uniting all Somali inhabited areas. Under the leadership of Somalia's dictator Siad Barre, Somali forces invaded the Ogaden with the goal of annexing the region. Initially, the Somali military made significant advances, capturing large parts of the territory and threatening Ethiopia's sovereignty. For Mengistu's regime, the Ogaden War was a test of survival. In a dramatic turn, the Soviet Union switched its support from Somalia to Ethiopia. Cuba, in alliance with the Soviet Union, sent thousands of troops and military advisors to assist Ethiopian forces. Libya, under Muammar Gaddafi, also provided support. With this international backing, Ethiopian forces launched a massive counteroffensive. After months of brutal fighting in difficult terrain, Ethiopian troops recaptured the Ogaden region by early 1978. The war had devastating consequences. Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians died and entire communities were displaced. The conflict also intensified Cold War rivalries in the Horn of Africa, turning Ethiopia into a key Soviet ally and Somalia into a Cold War adversary. The victory in the Ogaden War secured Ethiopia's territorial integrity, but deepened internal tensions and militarization, setting the stage for years of civil war and insurgency. Major social reforms, land, literacy, and religious recognition. At home, Mengistu launched sweeping reforms that aimed to transform Ethiopia's feudal society. His most ambitious was the Land to the Tiller campaign, which abolished centuries of landlord control. Land was nationalized and redistributed to the farmers who worked it. Millions gained ownership and control for the first time. This reform empowered peasants and aimed to break Ethiopia's deeply entrenched class system. For the first time, millions of Ethiopian farmers had legal ownership of the land they tilled. Before this, land belonged to landlords who exploited tenant farmers with high rents and harsh conditions. This shift was revolutionary. It challenged centuries-old social structures and promised economic justice for Ethiopia's rural majority. Recognizing that education was vital, Mengistu initiated a nationwide literacy campaign. Illiteracy had long crippled Ethiopia. Secondary and university students became teachers in rural villages, spreading reading and writing skills in local languages. Hundreds of thousands of youth volunteered to teach adults, helping Ethiopia reduce its illiteracy rate dramatically in a short time. This campaign also politically mobilized the population, promoting socialist ideals alongside basic education. The literacy movement is remembered as one of the few widely successful reforms of the era, giving millions the power of reading and writing for the first time. Another significant reform was the official recognition of Ethiopian Muslims as full citizens. For centuries marginalized and referred to simply as Muslims living in Ethiopia, Ethiopian Muslims were finally acknowledged as Ethiopian Muslims, affirming their equality and fostering national unity. This recognition was historic, helping reduce religious discrimination and integrating Muslims into the national identity. It opened doors for political participation, education, and social acceptance. Alliances and foreign relations. Mengistu's regime was closely aligned with the Soviet Union, Cuba, and Libya. The Soviet Union provided military aid and political support, while Cuba sent thousands of troops and military advisors to assist in various conflicts, including the Ogaden War. Libya, under Muammar Gaddafi, also supported Mengistu's government, providing funding and military aid. These alliances reflected Mengistu's Marxist-Leninist ideology and Cold War geopolitics, making Ethiopia a key Soviet ally in Africa, the Red Terror, reign of terror at home. Despite these reforms, Mengistu's regime ruled through fear. In 1977, he launched the Red Terror, a brutal campaign against political opposition, especially targeting young activists and leftist groups. Thousands of suspected opponents were arrested, tortured, and executed. The regime's secret police operated with impunity, and entire families lived in fear. Victims were sometimes publicly displayed to intimidate others. Families were even forced to pay for the bullets used to kill their loved ones. The Red Terror remains one of the darkest chapters in Ethiopian history, symbolizing how revolutionary ideals were crushed under ruthless authoritarianism, civil wars, and internal strife. Meanwhile, Ethiopia descended into civil war. The Eritrean People's Liberation Front intensified its fight for independence after decades of resistance. In Tigray, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, emerged as a powerful rebel group. In Oromia, the Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, fought for regional autonomy and cultural rights. Mengistu's government responded with military force, leading to brutal counterinsurgency campaigns marked by widespread atrocities, displacement, and famine. Millions of Ethiopians suffered as the country fractured along ethnic and political lines. Downfall and exile, the Cold War alliance that bolstered Mengistu's regime, eventually collapsed. When the Soviet Union withdrew support in the late 1980s, Ethiopia's economy and military weakened drastically. By May 1991, rebel forces led by the TPLF captured Addis Ababa. Mengistu fled Ethiopia, first crossing into Kenya, and later moving to Zimbabwe, where Robert Mugabe granted him asylum. Ethiopia later convicted Mengistu in absentia for genocide and sentenced him to death. But Zimbabwe refused to extradite him. Since then, Mengistu has lived quietly in Harare, rarely seen by the public. Mengistu's legacy remains deeply contested. For some, he is the man who gave land to the farmers, declared equality for Ethiopian Muslims, and fought to reduce illiteracy. For others, he is the architect of mass murder and terror, who plunged Ethiopia into decades of suffering through violent repression and war. Today, Ethiopia continues to wrestle with this complex history, remembering the land reforms, the schools, the graves, and the silences left behind. Mengistu Haile Mariam's story is a testament to revolution's promise and peril, a leader who sought to transform Ethiopia, but ruled through fear. His name, like the land he governed, is forever marked by both hope and pain.